And then Don Rust, he's connected as well. And so he showed up today too. He was here just a little bit before you got here. Yeah. You just missed him about 15 minutes or something. So yeah. So but it was good. She knew the Lord. She was baptized. She had had a history of loving Jesus and going to church. So it's wonderful. We know where she's at. Yeah. Amen. So today we're gonna last week we covered chapter 2, but I want to go through chapter 2 because we were really looking at Ruth, and today I want to look a little bit at Boaz, and so I want us to be able to do that. I was praying about the message, and the last time that I did the book of Ruth, we had just covered some of the points of the covenant. So the points of the covenant in the Old Testament. I mean, through the Mosaic Law, and also through the Abrahamic covenant. So the Abrahamic covenant is really, really key to any Jew, because that's where we talked about the Ashkenazi Jew and some of those kind of things. So it's really important to be able to look at the life of Boaz in that term. Now remember that Israel had violated God's covenant, and there was a drought that had hit Israel. That was the first chapter. So evidently the drought that had hit Israel was a result of they had turned their backs on God, and God then brought the drought in, and that a lot of the commentators that I read tell me that's a very common common deduction there. You just look and think that's going on. And so now, Israel is now, God blesses Israel all over again, and now they're having a harvest. So there's plenty, there's a bounty, and there's a harvest that's coming. And so everybody gets excited during the harvest seasons. It's really great to be able to see that. We got to see, when we took the tour down to Yuma, we were able to see a lot of the lettuce get harvested. It is just amazing. These guys have a special tool that they cut and they trim off the leaves, and all at one fell swoop, they've got a bag of bags, plastic bags. They pop it in there, they roll it up, and boom, it's in a cart ready to go to the store, just like that.
Wow!
I mean, boom, 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 it's gone. Yes. He used to do that? Well, my grandfather was a cotton picker, but he was not a lettuce picker.
He did cantaloupes, and my uncle also.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool. So we find that Israel is being blessed, and as I was praying about this whole thing, and I've said that before. We're one of the greatest nations in the whole world, and we have so many resources. And if we could just get, all this together, just think of the good that we can do. It is amazing if we could get everybody lined up on the same kind of thing. But right now, the devil is just causing all kinds of havoc out there. And it's just crazy. So we know that is taking place. In chapter 2, the chapter starts off and it says, "And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a man of" what?
Wealth.
And my says great wealth.
Yes, great wealth.
Great wealth. Yeah, it says a man of great wealth, and of the family of Elimelech. And I finally got to pronounce that one. And his name was Boaz. So when you look at this, and you have to go back to Deuteronomy chapter 28. Where God says, if you will obey my commandments this day and follow to do them, you will be the most blessed people on the face of the earth. The enemies will be put out. You'll have plenty in your storehouses. The fruit of your womb will be blessed. Just all kinds of blessings. Blessing upon blessing upon blessing upon blessing. And so this gives you the indication, and when you look at the life of Boaz, you really begin to realize that this man loved God, followed God, and God blessed him mightily. He was a blessed man. I mean, really, really, he is a man of great wealth, and in the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. So being of the same family, there was a law that said that that if your brothers that if your brother died, then the next brother would take over the responsibility of the wife, and it was called the lever law. It's called the lever law, and the brother-in-law law, lever brother-in-law. Okay, and that's why it's important that it turned out to be a kinsman who then comes in. If the man of the house drops off of that portion of the land, it's left by itself, and you need somebody to come in and help redeem it so that it could be fulfilled and be part of the tribe again. And Jesus is also called our kinsman redeemer, and because we're part of the same tribe, he goes ahead and redeems us. And this story is real key to this because the Moabitess was not supposed to be part of the inheritance, and she came into that inheritance, which is really, really cool. But Boaz did honor God. I mean, he must have honored the Sabbath. We know that he was following the gleaning. He was following the gleaning law. And the gleaning law was part of the Mosaic law. If you planted a field out there, you left the corners and some of the sides open for the poor. Okay? For the poor to come in to be able to glean. It was the welfare system for those that were finding themselves without work, or something was going on in their lives that they couldn't produce a crop for themselves. So that was required of God, of all of the agrarian society back then, that was planting fields out there. And so we find that that Boaz was a wealthy man, and that wealth didn't come just because. It was because he was following the Lord. He honored God. You see that in his responses. So Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him in whose sight I might find favor." Let me go out to the fields and see who I can find favor, and then I can glean from his field. So she was really looking for someone that she could really find favor from. This, and I think that is so wise. A lot of times, I remember one summer I had like 5 different jobs for like 6 weeks. I had 5 jobs. I was working the church. I was teaching at the college. I was painting, and I was doing this. I was doing maintenance over here at the RV park. I think maybe 4 jobs. 4 jobs. So I was giving up paint to keep the one down here, and then that brought me down to 2, the church and part of the school too. We were running school, and it was crazy. But I mentioned that because they did not pay as much down here locally as I was getting up there at painting. But the painting took me away from the community. And at that time, I needed to be in the community. And so I took a cut in pay to be here rather than to be up there. But there was an overlap that was going on there. And so I had those jobs for about 6 weeks, and then I dropped one, and it was like, whew, I made it through that. but it's important that we see that she is looking for favor. When I started looking for a part-time job locally, I wasn't just taking any job. I was looking for that favor. I was looking for that one job that I knew that would refresh me, and that was at the Twin Lakes down in St. David, where the ducks were, the fish were, beautiful lakes. I was having to mow and clean, keep the pool and everything going. The kids could come in and swim. We could picnic. We were even able to have a casita there to spend the week at, and that kind of stuff. It was really cool, really, really cool. So this is what Ruth is saying. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to go glean, but I'm going to be really looking at where I can find favor. She's already looking for. She's got that mindset that if you're going to pay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find some favor because this girl's worth it. Okay, this girl's worth the favor, the kind of favor that she's looking at. And Naomi says, "Go, my daughter." She got the blessing from Naomi. And I think that's so important to be able to bless our young people. Because this is her daughter-in-law. Go, my daughter, go and be blessed. Go and find favor. Go and glean. Then she had left. She went and gleaned in a field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. None other than Boaz. Yeah. And who was of the family of Elimelech. So she just so happened to come upon that. Now this is where she is finding favor. She's just beginning to see some of the blessings beginning to open up. Just right here. This is just the beginning of the blessing that she's beginning to realize. Okay, so God kind of opens that door up, and now behold, this wealthy man comes around, and you're going to see this. Last week I was just getting over this heat exhaustion, and I didn't go into as much detail as I'm going into now. Okay, behold, behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "The Lord be with you." And I think that is such a critical thing that he said, is that the Lord be with you. That means that he is really thinking about the Lord and the person that he's addressing. And he's addressing that to his employees, the reapers of the fields. The Lord be with you. I'm thinking, isn't that cool?
It's really cool.
That is just amazing. You know, when you come together anywhere, you know, it's just, may the Lord be with you. And you also. And some of you know where that's coming from. You know, but the same thing is that we need to bless each other. And Boaz, again, he's a man, to me, that language, he's a man of covenant. He's a man that understands his relationship with God, and as long as he keeps God in the forefront, he knows that everything that he has is coming because of his relationship with God. Because God said, if you obey my commandments and you follow all of my word, I will bless you. I will be with you. Yes?
I know a modern Boaz.
You know a modern Boaz?
Ed Curry.
Oh, yes. I know Ed Curry. Is that right? Oh, yes.
Modern Boaz.
I've heard so much about Ed.
His people.
Yep. Yes. Ed Curry. Yes. That is so cool. I'll have to get out and see what God's done with that man.
Yes.
Yeah. I've heard of him, but I've not taken a tour. Yeah.
You have to do that.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. Now, the Lord be with you, and they answered him, and the Lord bless you. So you know that the culture that he built around him. You know, this is a working environment. Okay, this is the culture. A lot of people, you know, if you study corporate, corporate cultures, that kind of stuff, or the working environments and stuff like that, you want to have a good working environment. Boaz seems to have really been able to build that up and to where all of his employees were really honoring the Lord like he was honoring the Lord as well. Now I wondered if he really got, if he was really looking for people that would also enter into, walk with him in covenant with the Lord. I think that's really important. You just don't take everybody in just because they need a job. He's looking for those persons that are needing, that will work for him in a way that will bring the blessing of God into his endeavors, into his enterprise. Amen. That's what's going on here, because you don't say somebody, may the Lord be with you, and then they say, well, may the Lord bless you. They're blessing each other. What they're doing is keeping their eyes on God. They're not keeping the eyes on that so-and-so boss. Like you hear a lot of these employees talking about today. That's not anywhere near that. I think this is such a cool story, because if you really start digging in, you begin to see some of that kind of thing taking place. And it works in everything. There were times that we working in the school, we were looking for parents that really, really wanted their children, educated in the Christian way. Not just, an alternative to public school. No, you've got to want it because of what? You tell me why you want to educate your children here. You start building that culture. You start making sure that they're the kind of parent that you want you to be working with, and to be working with their child, and they'll take the responsibility for their children too. Verse 5, It says, then Boaz said to his servant who was in charge of the reapers, who's this young woman here? Now, at this point, she is gathering with the poor. At this point, she's gathering with some of the poor out there, and he notices her. She's a young woman. She's still of age. You know, we know that because Naomi said, go back to your mother and find yourself some husbands, you know, so you can have your own families. So whose young woman is this? And whose young woman is this? So the servant who is in charge of the reapers. So now you have a field manager, right? You have a field manager there. Look at what the servant who was in charge of the reapers. That sounds like a field manager to me. Yeah. You know, okay? Said this young woman is it is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. So evidently, you know, people know each other in smaller communities. And she said from Moab, and she said, "Please let me glean and gather after the reapers." Okay. So she's gleaning what is being left over by the reapers. The reapers are gathering the best, and then there's some still left over, and that's what the gleaning was. They were gleaning and picking up some of the leftovers. Is basically what they were doing. And so the reapers. So let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she came and continued from morning until now, though she has rested a little in the house. So this manager was telling him, look, she has worked all day, she just rested a little bit, and she's moving forward. Now, Boaz has got his mind on her as, you know, is she a good worker or not? You know, what's her character like? Again, he's looking at, I don't know, a possible reaper? You know, another worker, okay? He's probably looking at that. I'm thinking. Yeah, he's kind of assessing her character. He's assessing who she is. And so then it says that, so it says, though she rested a little while in the house. Then Boaz said to Ruth, you will listen, my daughter, will you not? And he calls her a daughter. And some of the things that we find here is that she was considerably younger than he is. And so you'll see that come along later, that her you know, it alludes that she is much younger than he is. So he's a little older than she is. Do not go and glean in another field, nor go from here, but stay close to my young women. Okay? Every once in a while you can see people around you and you think, oh, man, I like that person so much. I want them close. I want them to be part of my life. I want them to be part of my endeavor. You know, I like the way that person carries herself. I like the way that she's working. I like the way that she's interacting with the others. I think she would be just great. You stay here, honey. I remember doing that once. We needed a director at the Chamber of Commerce one day, and we were interviewing people after people after people. And I went to a community event that brought a lot of people together on meeting the needs of the people here in the community. And I'm sitting there, you know, just there, just to hear what the needs of the community was, you know, being pastor and also the president of the chamber. And all of a sudden, this one lady stood up and started speaking about what needed to be done in this organization. And after she got through speaking, and the way that she was dressed, she was very professional. She articulated everything clearly, and I thought, ooh, I think I found my director. I wonder who she belongs to. Is she employed? You know? And then I too started asking about, you know, this, and she did. She came to the chamber, and we hired her, and she was one of our best. Wow. She was one of our best directors. She was the executive director, handling the office, putting together events, visiting the business community, and that kind of stuff. So it matters. It really does matter. You know, how we carry ourselves. You know, it really does. So that's what took place. So he says, will you not? Do not go and glean in another field, no go from here, but stay close to my young women. I like that. Let your eyes be on the field, which they reap. You watch them. If they go to another part of the field, you go with them. Okay? Have I not commanded the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink from what the young men have drawn. So here is the first example of anti-sexual harassment policy in the organization. That's the first one. I mean, this is what he says. Tell the young men not to touch it. He said, young men, don't you leave her alone. Now she's still coming under the blessing of God, God's protection, God's covenant. See, a lot of this has a lot to do with how we run business, how we're able to handle a lot of things. These are Boaz's words. He has a covenant with God. He is a man of his word. He understands how to protect his employees and treat them right. She's just a gleaner. But he's telling the men, you keep your hands off of her. Leave her alone. Because I've got my eye on her for better things. Now, he wasn't thinking about marriage at this time at all. Absolutely not. It's a very cool story. I like such a romantic, it is. And it says, now you're able to go. Don't be afraid to get the water from the men, because they will leave you alone. If I told them, they will do that. It's really important to know that that Boaz had to understand that the young men would do what he asked them to do. I think that's really important. If there's going to be if he's the owner of the land and he's got a field manager, that they followed through on that, so that he could trust them to do that. Really, really important there. And then in verse 10, and she fell on her face and bowed down to the ground and said to him, why have I found favor in your eyes? Now, he didn't become, what was the word there? Of great wealth. He didn't become of great wealth just because he was sloppy in his business. And why have I found favor in your eyes? And that you should notice me, since I am a foreigner. And watch his words here. See, we're really looking at Boaz tonight. We're really looking at Boaz. Boaz answered and said to her, it has been fully reported to me. Now, he's trusting his field managers and his workers. Again, how you pick those that are going to be working with you is really critical. Really, really critical. Because how they report back to you is going to be how you view what's going out on the field. Critical stuff. And it's amazing, because when you get up and you're working up at the at the Capitol and stuff like that, boy, you pick up on that in a hurry. Who's a man of his word? Who's willing to lie and get what they want? Who's willing to compromise? Who will stand? Who can I trust? Who can I trust? Because if I give out my idea, then it's going to get in the wrong hands and it's going to get squashed. A lot of things like that. So you zip it at certain points, but you know who you can and can't trust. And sometimes it comes down to just, it's just amazing. So he says, it has been fully reported to me. It has been fully reported to me. I've heard the complete story. Fully reported to me. It wasn't just, oh yeah, she's this. No. They gave her a detailed report of who she was, how she worked, who she came from. She gave up her own family to follow Naomi. She made some sacrifices to make it over here. She's a good worker. She's not taking breaks. She's really working for her, for what she's earning. She's of good character. The other people are responding to her. So he's heard the full report. And so it has been reported to me that all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. So now he knows her. He has made a full inquiry. I mean, if there was an application that went in for employment, he read that employment application. He knew that he knew everything about her, and he's reporting this back to her that all you have done to your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, you did not leave your mother alone to grieve alone. You lost your husband too. You have a heart. And you're willing to sacrifice for your mother-in-law. And because you have done that, since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother, and the land of your nativity, or the land of your birth, okay, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. Wow, that took something. That took something from you to be able to do that, and now you're here. She asked. He's telling her, the Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord. The Lord repay your work. Wow. I love the way that Boaz is not so into himself and into what's needed for the ranch or the farm here. This is the farm. He's not so much into that, but he's into her, into the individual worker. And he says, may the Lord repay your work. He's not looking for anything in return at this point, because she's a gleaner. Nothing. May the Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord of God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. Oh, I love that. I love that.
Mine says to trust.
To trust the Lord. Yeah. You have come under his wings for refuge, or trust. You have come under his wings for refuge. You have left everything. Evidently, Naomi had done a good job to really draw her in. Naomi had pulled her and had that relationship with her so that she could bring her in. It's just, I love this story. I just love this story. And he makes that comment, may the Lord repay you. And he's not even thinking about what she might mean for him at this point. He's just telling her, you know what? You have come to God for refuge. And that's part of the covenant. That's some of the Gentiles would come under that covenant of Abraham. The Gentiles will do that. And then the Mosaic law was able to make the means and the ways to do that through the gleaning. And so she's now falling under some of the blessings of the covenant that was part of Israel, and she has just come under that covering. She's now starting to come under that the covering, and starting to realize the blessing that Boaz has come to understand from God. I love that. And when she said, let me find favor in your sight. Let me find favor in your sight. You have just mentioned the Lord, but let me find favor in your sight, my Lord, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. With that language, she just applied for a job.
Yeah.
Maidservant is she's hired by Boaz. She was a gleaner. She's calling herself a maidservant. That's a different relationship now that has with Boaz. Now Boaz said to her at mealtime, come here and eat the bread, and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed parched grain to her, and she ate and was satisfied, and kept some of it back. She was thinking of Naomi. She went ahead and had a meal, kept some of it back for Naomi. See, she's a woman of character. She's thinking of her mother-in-law, who's home alone, and she's going to have something to eat. Now, and then when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young man, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Now, the sheaves, this is where the full harvest is at. It's no longer the leftovers. It's not the gleaning anymore. She's right in the middle of the grain heads. She just got promoted. Boom, just like that. And again, I like this story. See, because this whole thing gives you so many principles on how, how a good operation should, how a good business should operate. Really, really amazing. That Boaz, again, he really focused on her character, her reputation, preceded her, and all of this all came together. And then Boaz starts, opening the door for her to be able to get into where the real harvest was really taking place. So when she rose up to glean, Boaz commanded his young men, said, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. Yes, she's a reaper, but I want to see how she's really doing among the sheaves." I think we got a good one here. Let's see what she can do. Let's see what she can do. Also, let some of the grain from the bundles fall purposely for her. Leave it so that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. So there's going to be some extra coming her way. So she gleaned in the field until the evening, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. About how much is that? I know some
30 pounds.
About 30 pounds.
1.1 bushels.
About 30 pounds. 30 pounds of wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, barley. And then she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned. So she brought out and gave her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied, after she had eaten. So she came home with, came home with the barley, but then she had some lunch available for her mother-in-law as well. Isn't that great? Isn't that such a heart? I mean, you really get to see the heart of the people that are part of this here. And when her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you." I mean, because you've just come home with a whole lot more than normal. I can see it. Blessed be the one who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, "This man's name with whom I work today is Boaz." See, this is a working relationship here. Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he of the Lord, who has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead." So she's talking about her daughter-in-law and himself, or herself. Naomi said to her, "The man is a relative of one. He is one of our kinsman redeemers." He is one of our kinsman redeemers. That means that when the house is left without a man, he could come in and take over all of the operation and make sure that they succeed. And he goes, "She's one of our kinsman redeemers." And then Ruth the Moabitess said, "He also said to me, 'You shall stay close to my young men until they have finished all of my harvest.' You don't go to any other field. You are welcome to work in this field." Boy, he treated her really nice. I don't think she wants to go anywhere else. No. And she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of barley harvest and the wheat of harvest, until she dwelt with her mother-in-law. I don't know if this verse, if some of your verses said that she stayed close to the handmaidens. It does say that. Okay, she's no longer with the reaper, with those that are gleaning. She is now with the handmaidens, the servants of Boaz. That's what that indicates. And she stayed close by the young women of Boaz to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, and she dwelt with her mother-in-law. So we'll stop there. And it's just such a great story. Isn't it neat to see all these principles working and just seeing how that all works out? It's just great. Some of these principles really have to be some of our guiding principles in whatever we do, in everything that we do. how we conduct ourselves, how we manage things, how we treat one another, how we open things up for other people, all of that kind of stuff has to be there. Be trusted with our brothers and sisters, that all of that stuff. That has to all happen. Anybody have any thoughts or comments as we have?
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
one I'd like to put in there.
Sure.
Soon as Boaz found out that this is Naomi's daughter-in-law, and he knew that her husband was dead,
Right.
he also remembered that Naomi was part of his family.
That's true.
So he was taking care of his family.
Already at that
Yeah.
point. That's true.
And so, all of that
He-
ties together as you get further down into this story,
Yeah.
you see where it all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
And now Naomi was a pretty smart little lady herself.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
And so, I love this story.
Oh yeah, I do too.
But it's the fact that families taking care of family.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's the way that we should be.
Yeah, we are. We are. I'm going to say we are.
Yes.
We are family.
And I can
We are.
Yes.
and I can attest to that.
Yes. Amen. Yeah.
When you were in Yuma and saw the fields and stuff, did you notice how much stuff they leave in the fields for?
Oh yeah, they do. There's a lot left over. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. And one of the problems that they were having was because of the standards, the high standards that they use for the lettuce, because these are all consumables. If they see a coyote tracks moving through the corner of the field, they have to go 5 feet on each side and harvest it at that area. If there's a human being that goes through that 5 feet on both sides I can't remember what it was, but it was significant. The illegal aliens that have tracked through those fields destroys a lot of that harvest. They cannot, by regulation, harvest those fields. Yeah. And that was one of the things that they were really battling.
What amazed me was when they advertise for cutters, they're very specific.
Yeah.
Lettuce cutters, broccoli cutters.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
like
they're
I said,
trained-
there's a real
they're trained
art
to
to
do.
it.
Yeah.
And that part amazed me.
Yeah.
That they,
Any other thoughts, questions?
yeah, my thing is that he was the guardian.
Yes. Yeah. He is the guardian redeemer. Right. So he was supplying. And good point, Larry. I think that was a really good point that you mentioned, is that he knew that Naomi was part of the family, and that he was already starting to move into that position of that kinsman redeemer.
It was